Ever stared down a tunnel so dark and foul you could swear the shadows were actually breathing? Now, what if those shadows were designed? Picture a place where the air itself is a weapon, where every single step could be your last, and it's all orchestrated by creatures that you probably just write off as pests. Today, we're not talking about traps. We're diving into a masterpiece of inventive cruelty, a kobold-crafted nightmare that's taken down countless overconfident adventurers, Axagul's caves. Now forget what you think you know about kobolds. These aren't just grumpy little goblins. In this den, they see themselves as heirs to a dragon's fury, and they've poured that legacy into every switch, snare, and poison-tipped needle. Welcome, adventurers, back to the Red Quills. This week, we are going back into the really quick maps, and we are talking about how to create a kobold's lair in a way that is both challenging and true to the lore, understanding, and abilities of the kobolds stat blocks in D&D. Now, what we'll do today is we're going to go through how to design that lair. I'm going to be talking about the different areas within the caves that I'm designing, how you can create some lore and world building for them that makes them a little bit more interesting than just the pests that you might have seen in previous D&D campaigns, how we can use the environment to make kobolds, which are very low-level challenge creatures on themselves, into something that will actually challenge a party well up to level 10, and how you can use and gauge the danger, the lair actions, the hostile environment in a way that will keep them on their toes and stop them from getting overconfident. So, let's get out our graph papers and our pens and pencils, sit down, open up our books, and talk about how to create a kobold's lair. These are kobolds of Axagul's lineage, Axagul being a dragon long since dead, or so they claim. And they aren't typical, easily scared pests. These kobolds believe that they are the chosen inheritors of Axagul's power, the keepers of his terrible flame, even if that flame now shows itself through their cunning instead of, an actual fiery breath. And they're small, sure, but their ingenuity is off the charts. Their loyalty to their kin and their adopted dragon heritage is absolute. They are survivors, ambush specialists, and above all, master trap makers. Their whole society, their very life in these caves revolves around this deep respect and the paranoid need to protect what they now see as theirs. Now, they've taken a natural cave formation, maybe some ruins left by Axagul or whoever came before, and they've built on them. They've burrowed and dug and carved and created a network of tunnels perfectly sized for their small frames. Any creature trying to get through finds themselves at an instant and often deadly disadvantage. These tunnels aren't just paths, they're ambush routes, escape hatches, and unaliving holes, often running alongside main corridors, and this lets the kobolds harass and flank and disappear before you can even draw your sword. The legacy of Axagul isn't just about dragon-themed armor they painstakingly craft in their hidden foundry, or the murals of their scary ancestor on their village walls. It's about the very idea behind their defenses. It's in the cruel efficiency of their traps, the mind games they play, how they turn every shadow, every loose stone, every drip of water into a potential threat. As we go through, I'm going to be designing 7 individual caverns that the kobolds use as part of their lairs. And I'm going to break down not only how they use those caverns and how you can make them into different challenges as a DM, but how we can classify those challenges according to the 5-chamber fractal system that I developed in my Mega Dungeon video. You can check that out. But as always, if you think this is going to be useful to you, it is helpful to you, ring that bell, hit that subscribe button, and as always, give this video a like if you want it to reach more people. So, let's start out with the entrance to Axagul's cave, the first challenge that any adventuring party will face, the poison tunnel. This isn't just one trap, it's an entire environment, a carefully crafted arena of suffering. Imagine stepping into a passage that looks pretty normal at first, and the air gets heavy and damp and carries this weird, sharp smell that tickles your throat. That's your first clue that something is seriously wrong. And the tunnel itself is a kobold engineering marvel, probably a natural crack in the rock that they've upgraded. It's narrow, forcing most adventurers to go in single file, which instantly breaks up party teamwork. The walls are slick with moisture, the ground is uneven, and any light is dim and unreliable. Often it comes from flickering bioluminescent fungi casting creepy, dancing shadows, perfect for hiding kobold-sized attackers or their trap mechanisms. These tunnels are built for kobolds, making them tough for larger folks. Some spots might even be too tight for fully armored humans to squeeze through without trouble, slowing them down, making them easy targets. And now the poison. Oh, the poison. Kobolds are famous for their love of all things toxic, and here they've really gone all out. And it's not just one kind of poison, it's a cocktail, a layered defense. The main threat is the thick, heavy gas. Think clouds of toxic fumes that cling to the ground, or maybe they're released now and then from cleverly hidden vents. The vents might be triggered by pressure plates set to ignore a kobold's light weight, but hiss angrily whenever a heavier adventurer steps on them. Or perhaps even sneakier, kobolds hiding in alcoves or side tunnels might trigger the gas manually, waiting for the perfect moment. Because poison is the best tool for a kobold to use, particularly against more powerful adventurers. Now, one kobold might be a fair challenge for one level 1 player, but by the time you get past level 2, a group of kobolds is nothing more than a group of pests, unless you bring in other problems. If your players are exhausted, if they're out of spell slots, if they're poisoned, then they're going to start rolling things at disadvantage. They're going to start slowing down, and they can't use their abilities and their skills to best effect. And that's what you want the kobolds to be thinking about as well. A poisoned adventurer is only half as effective at everything, and that's fantastic for the kobolds. But while we're here, what about the kobolds themselves? They're not trying to off themselves. They've either built up some resistance to their own poison over generations, or more likely, they have a fairly simple but effective method. Perhaps a crude leather and bladder mask, which lets them walk through these areas pretty safely, or just by the fact that they can hold their breath as they walk through the tunnel. Maybe that's something that the adventurers can notice if they're following a party into the caves, that the troop of kobolds' heavy breathing stops completely as they go through the poison tunnel. And maybe they will, inadvertently think that that is perhaps a sign that the cave has been silenced. But that's their first clue that there's poison in the air down there. Now, if the poison tunnel was a slow, choking slide into paranoia, the trap gauntlet is the next bit. It's a sudden explosion of brutal and carefully linked hazards. The second challenge of the poison tunnel before we move on is not only the poison itself in the air, it's the fact that it's a sound funnel. Anyone who enters creates echoing footsteps that travel further and further down into the dark deeps of Axagul's caves, and that's perfect for the kobolds. They know whenever someone is entering. So if you have 2 kobold guards waiting in the gauntlet, they're going to know as soon as someone enters the tunnel. If they're halfway through and the guards don't recognize them, then they're going to be ready to set off a series of traps as they go through the chamber, further and further in. Traps are what kobolds are known for, and we have to use it to that fullest extent. Visually, the gauntlet is probably a longer, more built-up looking section of the lair, and it is the main route to the more important areas like the foundry or the treasury, so the kobolds have put extra effort into its defenses. The walls might be smoother in places, allowing for more complex mechanical traps. The floor could be a mix of different materials, stone flags, packed earth, rickety wooden planks, each surface a potential trigger for a different horror. Lighting here might be deliberately all over the place, brightly lit sections that expose intruders, followed by pitch-black areas hiding dangers. The kobolds, with their dark vision, can navigate it easily. And the main idea of this gauntlet is a series of interconnected traps. One trap doesn't just spring, it's designed to push victims into the next, to make avoiding one hazard lead right into a second or even a third. And this is where the kobold cunning really shines. They think in layers. So let's break down the kind of nasty surprises that you might find. Firstly, the classics, but refined by kobold paranoia. Pit traps, but not just simple pit traps. We're talking about weighted, flipped floors that only trigger when someone heavier steps on them, while the kobolds can scurry across just fine. And they might not just be deep, they could be lined with sharpened stakes, often smeared with filth or poison for extra pain. Some might have a false bottom, dropping victims into a second pit, maybe with a gelatinous cube or a swarm of angry giant centipedes waiting. Or imagine a pit that snaps shut again after someone falls in, separating them from the party. Swinging traps of logs, often spiked, or bladed pendulums made to swing across the corridor at chest height or head height for human-sized intruders while safely passing over a kobold's head. And they can be triggered by tripwires or pressure plates, or even by kobolds who are hidden on the ledges, who time the release perfectly. Projectile traps of darts, arrows, or even heavier things like crossbow bolts launched from hidden openings in the walls or the ceilings, again, often poisoned. Some might be simple mechanical setups. Some could involve the kobolds with crossbows taking pot shots from behind arrow slits. And lastly, the floor hazards make it difficult terrain. Caltrops scattered across the floor may be hidden under a thin layer of sand or dirt, making every step risky. Oil slicks designed to send adventurers tumbling, ideally into another trap or into a range of waiting kobold spearmen. The oil jar trap is a nasty classic. Spill the oil, then a hidden kobold lobs a flaming bolt or an alchemist's fire. But the kobolds of Axagul's cave are more inventive than just that. Their trap tinkerers are always coming up with new ideas like collapsing ceilings or walls, spiked one-way tunnels or chutes, alarm traps to let them know how many people are coming, or exploiting kobold size by having tunnels that suddenly shrink down, forcing larger adventurers to squeeze through at disadvantage, while the kobolds can dart in and out, jabbing with spears or short swords. The nightmare part of the Gauntlet is the relentless pressure and the feeling of being constantly outsmarted. Kobold guards hidden in parallel tunnels or on the ledges above are always watching. They're not just passively waiting for the traps to trigger, they're actively involved. They might taunt the adventurers, try to trick them into moving a certain way. They'll use hit-and-run tactics, popping out from a hidden door, or throw a volley of sling stones or javelins and then vanish before the party can really fight back. And they will try to split the party, which the party knows not to try to do. So it's fantastic to tempt them with that, so that they can really be tempted by something they know is probably not going to work. And then if it doesn't work, when it doesn't work, they should have seen this coming. The Gauntlet isn't about physical damage. It's about draining resources on a massive scale. Healing spells, hit dice, potions, spell slots for detection and disarming all will be heavily used up. And the psychological impact, well, doubt creeps in. Frustration rides high. Is any part of this floor safe? Is that suspiciously clear path too clear? The kobolds can turn the adventurer's caution against them, making them second guess every move. The kobolds of Axagul's cave don't fight fair, they fight to win. They use every dirty trick their devious little minds can think of. Surviving the Gauntlet means you're tough, resourceful, and probably very, very lucky. But the question is, at what cost? What other horrors has this dragon-worshipping tribe cooked up deeper in their lair? So we've made it through the sickening fumes of the poison tunnel and, if we're lucky, dodged many of the horrors of the trap Gauntlet. But to really get the genius and the pure, unfiltered evil of Axagul's cave, we need to look past individual traps and understand the thinking behind a kobold-crafted death trap. It's not just about scattered hazards, it's a complete approach to defense, tied deeply to their culture, their worship of the dragon, their basic nature as cunning survivors. Because the first rule of kobold death trap design is know yourself, exploit your enemy. Kobolds are small and physically weak compared to most adventurers, and they know it. They don't pick fair fights if they can help it. Their entire lair is built to cancel out their weakness and boost their strength. Narrow tunnels, for example, aren't just a small problem for larger creatures. They're a huge tactical advantage for kobolds. Medium-sized adventurers are forced to squeeze, move slower, lose dexterity bonuses to AC, and are easier targets for kobolds who can attack them from relative safety. And on the flip side, these same tunnels let kobolds move quickly, flank, retreat, and then attack again on their own terms. The second rule is defense in depth and layers. One trap is an obstacle. A series of connected traps, like in the Gauntlet, is a nightmare. But Axagul's caves take this even further. The poison tunnel isn't just a trap, it's an area of attrition. It softens up intruders, it uses up resources and frays nerves before they even reach the more mechanically tricky Gauntlet. And beyond the Gauntlet, you can bet there are specialized defenses guarding key areas like the Foundry, Axagul's graves, and of course the real treasury. Each section is designed to wear down invaders bit by bit. Alarm traps are vital here. They alert deeper parts of the den to get ready, reset traps, or even move valuable stuff if needed. And third, there is the psychological warfare factor. There is nothing more dangerous to a party than making them doubt themselves and each other. If they've come into this thinking this is going to be an easy encounter and you're 2 chambers in and they realize just how over their heads they are, it's always important for you not only to realize that the kobolds want to weaken them as much as possible, but they also want them gone. While the kobolds might be, bloodthirsty little beasts and annoying little pests, it's much better for them to let someone go and tell everyone else that this lair is not worth it than it is for them to keep them there and invite further invasions. So if you have a group of adventurers who wants to leave, who has overestimated this, then let them. Let them tell everyone that these kobolds are not to be trifled with. Because the next part of creating the Kobold Caves is using the environment and the scavenge stuff. In the mud pools, you've got more hazardous combat. Like we discussed last week with Silk the Ogre, they can use the mud pools, and the natural draconic legacy that they have in their blood allows them to withstand greater heat. So they're fine with the boiling mud. They can use it to hide, to make themselves unseen and to ambush people as they come in. In addition, the Foundry also creates an opportunity for them to use their trap building cunning to create heavily decked out, heavily armored kobolds that are much slower, much more bulky, much more ungainly, but much, much stronger in physical combat. Yes, your players will finally have the opportunity to meet them in combat, but it might not go the way that they expect it to go, particularly if you have a large central pit in which a pool of lava melts down all of the metal that the kobolds bring as scrap. You can come into different areas and you can play with the legacy of Axagul. Kobolds always worship their draconic cousins. They think themselves the descendants of this vast legacy, because this isn't just a cave, it's a shrine to the dragon, and the draconic influence seeps into how they design their traps and their overall defensive strategy. They're protecting not just their lives, but the sacred memory of their great leader. They do have an escape plan ready, but they would much rather be left here alone to their own devices and not have to move, because this is where their home is. This is where their legacy is. There's far more important stuff here, which is why they want to discourage anyone from coming back. And the way of thinking like that turns the caves from a simple dungeon into a living, breathing death trap. Always think about every chamber within this network is, according to the 5-chamber system, a trap chamber, and that's perfect for the kobolds. The kobolds love traps. It's just a different flavor of trap. Is it an attrition trap? Is it a gauntlet trap? Is it a combat trap? Is it an environmental trap? Is it, a trap of choice in which they can choose to do something that's morally bankrupt, but that will punish them, or choose something that is, going to be good for the kobolds and perhaps get away with less damage? And finally, of course, it's all designed so that there's backup after backup after backup, so the kobolds can create one defense and flee further in, and flee further and further and further, while creating behind them an escape route for everyone else to leave. So that when the players think that they finally cleared out the tunnel, they've sacrificed the last few, brave guards who have tried to hold them off while the small kobolds flee, they can think, okay, cool, we're done. Bye, we'll leave. They head on out, they think they're finished, they've killed a few kobolds, it's all good, and then a couple of days later the kobolds come back in, set everything back up again, and carry on as they were. And this way of thinking turns Axagul's caves from a simple dungeon into this living, breathing community. It's a place where the environment itself is an enemy, where every shadow is suspicious, where the smallest residents have a cruel and cunning intellect that can bring down even the mightiest heroes. It's proof that in D&D, real danger doesn't always come from the biggest monster, but comes from the most ingenious, the most underestimated, the ones that understand the mechanics go simply beyond combat and action economy. The kobolds of Axagul's caves aren't just monsters to be killed, they are architects of traps and fear. Their lair is their masterpiece. Treating them like mere cannon fodder is the first and often last mistake an adventurer will ever make. So here we have it. We have finished the map of Axagul's cave very, very quickly, and it's not taking me very long at all, but an understanding of what a community of kobolds wants, what it intends to do, how it wants to avoid open combat and instead focus on creating a hostile environment. Any variation of trap that they can possibly come up with, dead ends and misunderstandings and wars of attrition, can create a dungeon filled with low CR creatures that will still pose a threat to higher level characters. That's the way that you can create an environment that is challenging and engaging to them. Always think about how to make a map that does as much work as the stat blocks of the creature that you're working with. So, thank you once again for watching this episode of Really Quick Maps. I hope that you've enjoyed it. As always, let me know in the comments below what your most ingenious kobold trap is. It's always fantastic to hear how original and inventive everyone can be. I've come up with a few here. that can use the environment in a particular way. There's obviously a bit more details on the map itself that you see me write out, as well as talking about it. And of course, you can download this map on the Red Quills Patreon. The link is in the description below. You can find that there. As always, let me know what monsters you want me to work on in the future. I have the rest of this series already prepared, but I intend to keep creating videos like this to explore how map making can really elevate your use of creatures and monsters encounters in D&D. So let me know what you want me to do, and I will pick it up and have a look at it and think about how to create a lair or an encounter area that really uses it to their strengths. But as always, thank you for watching. I want to say a huge thanks to my YouTube and Patreon community. It's fantastic to be able to do this, and I want to keep expanding and enjoying the fruits of this labor. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next week for the next episode of the Red Quills. I will see you then. But also, think about,